Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined by Denny Carter on what I am christening Code Red Tuesday. Code Red's being ordered league-wide. Aaron Rodgers finally orders the Davante Adams Code Red. The Steelers order the Russell Wilson Code Red. Denny Chase Brown ordered the, you know what, I'm going to score Code Red Sunday night against the New York Giants. A lot of news to get to. Just beyond the Davante Adams trade and like the fallout from the Jets' latest loss. We have stuff in the Bills' backfield. Stuff on the Jets backfield. Every Saint being injured ahead of Thursday night football. Chargers, I'm squinting here. Chargers being weirdly pass heavy for Denny, which is something I had actually predicted. The Falcons not quitting. Tyler Algier. The Jags broken beyond repair, ? Drake May, ? The Calvin Ridley crisis. And we got so many crises brewing this league.
Drake May is a good question. And we will look into it strongly.
Yeah, the Drake. Yeah, Denny, but no crises is bigger in your mind than players refusing to score in the fourth quarter. Tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah. So this has come up now. Actually, it came up twice in week 6. One with Garendo, the RB2 or 3 or whatever for the Niners.
RB7.
Streaking down the sideline for a long touchdown and deciding to go down at the 1 yard line, and then the Niners punching it in 2 plays later with their fullback with use check, right? Okay. So here's what's happened, unfortunately, for fantasy and for real football, I would say, is players have gotten so much praise from the media for selflessly going down at the 1 yard line, literally any time in the fourth quarter. Okay. Like it doesn't even have to be late in the game. It's just like you want to keep the clock moving. You want to keep it. So the guy, instead of scoring and adding points to the board, you go down at the 1 and that means that you love the team over yourself, whatever.
Yeah, Denny, the Panthers are trailing. I'm not sure Chuba Hubbard should have gone down at the 1 with 14:42 remaining in the fourth quarter.
So it's gotten to the point where you have Garendo, who may never have another shot at a touchdown in his life. Having to sacrifice and being in his head about what do I do? Well, what do the analytics say? As you're running, as you're avoiding tacklers, you're thinking, what do the analytics say about this situation? And really, they don't know. Okay. They're players. They're reacting. They're playing football.
Well, they're saying the analytics don't know either because they don't either.
They should not be. It actually takes reporters like 48 hours to like pour through the data and then declare, okay, it was the right thing to do or it wasn't the right thing to do. So you expect players to crunch these numbers in their heads while they're running toward the end zone. We saw it again with Chase Brown on the other side of the coin where he actually goes in for the touchdown. Okay.
He made a token slide once in the end zone, which I thought was pretty funny.
Was that what that was?
Yeah. He was like, I don't know if he was like his software glitched and he remembered he was supposed to slide and then he slid in the end zone, but he did slide after being 4 to 5 feet into the end zone.
It was the single worst entrance into the end zone I've ever seen. And so okay, so that's what happened. So the analytics crunching in Chase Brown's head was such that it actually made him malfunction, as you said.
Isaac Garundo malfunctioned too because they could have lost after he slid. It was an extremely poor decision.
I see people online saying, well, Chase Brown is a selfish player. It's as simple as that. He's a selfish player because he added 6 points to his team's total. Okay. So I don't get it. Unless these guys are specifically told, do not score a touchdown, then you cannot expect them to take it upon themselves to slide at the 1 yard line. Just score the touchdown. It's not that bad. You're adding points.
We've seen the tipping point, I think, because Chase Brown, first off, he did it. He was like, screw it, I'm going to be a legend. I'm scoring a touchdown. I don't care if you like it or not. Guess I'm a running back. Guess what I do? Score touchdowns. And after the Isaac Garundo fiasco, Deebo Samuel's postgame interview was like, yeah, you should have scored because the game was not over. And he said he should not have let Juice get that TD. Isaac Garundo slid. They were only up 5. The Seahawks still had 2 timeouts. I think they had 3 timeouts, actually. 2 or 3 timeouts. The Seahawks could have easily gotten the ball, I think, back with 40 seconds and an 8-point deficit. Like it was too. It's like, I agree. Unless the coaches tell you not to score, you just got to score. We've got them overthinking. Athletes overthinking in every sport now.
And also, it's so anti-player. Bad. It's anti-player because guess what? When it comes time to negotiate a new contract, they're going to point to the stat sheet. Well, you're a little low on touchdowns, aren't you? And okay, well, you told me never to score in the fourth quarter because we want to keep the clock running or something. I don't get it. I just say you score every time, no matter what.
We have an epidemic of athlete overthink. None more so than pitchers in Major League Baseball. I won't get into this right now.
Oof.
Yeah, too, like the NBA, like I've got a wide open 18-foot jumper from the elbow, but the computer told me never ever to take the shot, even though I make it 82% of the time.
The computer does hate easy shots.
Supposedly twos are coming back, by the way.
Oh, the analytics. Yes, you're right. The
They're
analytics
coming back.
They like mid-range jumpers now. Yeah,
mid-range jumpers are back in vogue. I mean, yeah, you probably shouldn't be shooting 1 foot inside the 3-point line. That is probably the single worst act in all sports. But just shoot a 2-pointer every once in a while. Shoot a football take every once in a while, Denny. There's only one thing to talk about today. Producer Adam termed it our long national nightmare right before we got in the air. It was a long national nightmare of Davante Adams faking a hamstring injury for the Raiders. And Aaron Rodgers, too. I tweeted this earlier today, didn't he? He didn't know what the problem was, but he's known since the summer that the solution was Davante Adams. Wouldn't have mattered if they were 6-0, 0-6, 2-4 like they currently are. He was engineering this trade, getting his buddy Davante Adams to New York. By the way, relations, have been kind of strained between Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. I think Aaron spending his entire season engineering the trade for another receiver is really going to improve things between Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. But just on a macro level, how much does this move the needle for an offense that was admittedly very low on quality targets, like places beyond Garrett Wilson where they could just get a dependable catch, like an efficiency target, basically. A lot of really inefficient pass catchers in this Jets offense. Davante Adams is anything but. How does this move the needle for an offense that struggling is kind of strong, but has been underachieving all year?
Yeah. By the way, Aaron Rodgers, as far back as July at a celebrity golf tournament, said, "I can't wait to play with Davante Adams again." So he's been working on this for quite some time, even though I'm sure he will deny even knowing Davante Adams at this point. I think that there's room for Wilson and Adams to coexist in this offense. Actually, at first blush, I said, "Oh, it's over for Wilson." I think I said that to you on the phone this morning. But I don't agree with myself now that I've looked into the numbers.
By the way, Denny and we talk for 60 minutes every morning on the phone.
Right when we wake up. 6% over their expected pass rate. That's the fourth highest mark in the league. They have one of the league's highest neutral pass rates at 67%. So lots of passing going on in this Jets offense, whether it's good or not. Well, we know it's not good. Despite the slow play, because Aaron Rodgers likes to play slow, whatever, they're actually averaging 63 offensive snaps per game. That's 15th in the league. I know it's not great, but was not like bottom dwelling by any means. So I do think that the pass heaviness and Wilson and Adams being the only game in town really now means that both of them can get by. Now that the PPR scam for Wilson is likely over, he's actually probably going to have to make plays now. I don't mean that as an insult, but like he's going to have to do some stuff downfield. So that's the question. Can he do that?
That's why I do think they can both still get home. Garrett Wilson will not be like a top 10 receiver anymore, at least definitely not starting out. But I just think it makes the entire project more sensible, more coherent, where Davante is going to be doing the cleanup stuff in the short to intermediate areas of the field, where he is as dominant as anyone in the past 10 to 20 years at that job. And that Garrett Wilson, there's going to be a huge reduction in volume, but hopefully a big increase in efficiency, like more one-on-one matchups, not getting bracketed like he was constantly. But his targets are just Aaron Rodgers jamming the ball in there, which is cool for PPR. Yeah, but it's not good for real life production or yardage production. And that even on a pretty dramatic decrease in targets, Garrett Wilson can definitely remain top 24 and maybe even remain top 18. Every week he's getting 6 to 7 targets. He's baseline is like 60 to 75 yards, and he's frequently in like that 75 to 100 yard range. He can make hay on that.
I forgot to mention this, and actually ESPN's Mike Clay mentioned this on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter. Garrett Wilson and Allen Lazard are both top 12 PPR receivers right now. I actually do think that the Adams and Wilson can be top 12 together.
Their top 12 is pushing it. I think top 18 is maybe more written. I'm really quibbling here. You know what? You say 12, I say 6 more than that.
We're talking about 1.3 points per game difference.
Yes. there is a nightmare scenario. I'm not trying to be a troll with this, but what if things really are strained between Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson? What if Aaron Rodgers in his mind, look, well, Lazard's already doing that downfield stuff just fine. Like, why would we take Allen out of the offense? Like, why would I not target Allen? Like, that's Allen's job.
I was just actually talking to my dad during the Jets-Bills game about why I didn't make a hard and fast stand for Allen Lazard in the preseason. Of course he was going to be involved. Like, he's Rodgers' boy. And I was afraid, honestly, of censorship from you. It was
they did spend all summer. The Jets press score was like, the Jets desperately want to get rid of Allen Lazard, and there wasn't really any pushback either. Like, well, like Aaron Rodgers though is against it. I think even Aaron was like, yeah, we got this guy. Like, I know he's my friend, but I've made new friends now. I can make friends.
I did want to say our buddy Kevin Clark mentioned an interview he did with Rodgers where Rodgers said that the last time they played together, Adams was the primary read on 80% of the Packers dropbacks, which is insane. And it actually that actually does jive with the stats. In 2021, Davante Adams led all receivers with a 39% first read target share per fantasy points database. I think that
was the peak of one weapon Packers, though. That was like the absolute peak of. Remember that at that point for 3 years, we're like, why have the Packers not drafted a wide receiver?
That's true. Yeah, I do want to just add this to the first read data here. Garrett Wilson has the 7th highest first read target share at 36% this season. He actually leads the entire NFL with 55 first read targets. Those largely, I think, go away with Adams. So, I feel like I'm speaking in both sides of my mouth because
it could be a very painful transition for Garrett Wilson.
Those go
I think
away,
he's ultimately going to get there.
I feel like this team is just going to be pass heavy, and there's nothing to do about it. And that means that both of these guys with enough efficiency can get there on a weekly basis.
Yeah, Aaron is like by the end of his time in Green Bay, like he was all about the running game. He was cool with the floor and the 2-back approach and leaning on the run. He doesn't seem into it in Green Bay, or into New York.
No,
I know the line's not amazing. Breece Hall, we're talking about maybe he's having some mental struggles. That's your take. I didn't say it. Denny said it.
Well, what I mean is that he's taken a lot of hits. He seems to be avoiding contact at all costs. I think that's probably bad for a running back.
So they've been really, really, really into this extension of the running game, passing game, the Jets, and I mean, acquiring Davante Adams. Hard to see that changing. By the way, this is a teaser. Don't mention it, Denny, until we get to it. Well, people listening to the pod will already know. There's been a trade that I'm gonna have to ask you about live on the air. In just a second. It involves Amari Cooper's been traded to the Bills. But we'll talk about that in just a minute.
My eyes actually, like my eyebrows, like went off my face for a second.
They did. But before we get to Amari Cooper and his new team, which Denny has a lot prepared on, Denny, how bad does this hurt Breece Hall, if at all? How bad does it hurt Braylon Allen? Didn't have a big game, wasn't very involved on Monday night. What are the effects? We kind of just got into it. Do you think of the Davante Adams trade on the Jets running game?
I thought at the beginning of the season that the Jets would be balanced or run heavy enough and have enough good game script so that Braylon Allen could regularly see 10 touches a game. I don't think that's happening unless things change dramatically. So I think Braylon Allen is mostly, unless you're in like a really deep league with lots of flex spots, he's mostly just a hold for now. He would be tremendously valuable if Breece Hall were to miss time. But, like I said, like if I'm banking on this team continuing to be super pass heavy, then Braylon Allen's not a thing.
Braylon Allen is, unfortunately, despite his totally insane contingent value, just looking like a drop now because the passing game got so much better for the Jets. It's not a backfield that's big enough for the two of them anymore.
You said
despite his he's a drop. Braylon Allen's definitely a drop because buys are raging, injuries are mounting. He's like a luxury you can't afford to keep, basically.
I don't know.
He's the classic guy that always looks good on paper, but like in the middle of the season, where like every roster spot counts, like, dude, I'm sorry, like I'm not ever starting Braylon Allen unless Breece Hall gets hurt, and like I'm going to hate my life the second Breece gets hurt, and I don't have Braylon, but That's like, who cares? Like,
you're
classic. I could get hit by a bus tomorrow territory.
Stop.
It just is like, oh wow. I mean, Brees might get hurt, or guess what? A 737 might land on my house.
Yeah, it's the same likelihood. Look, I don't know if you're in one of these brutal leagues with like a 4-person bench, and then I guess you're probably dropping Braylon Allen. But otherwise, I mean, I say hang on for dear life if you can.
I think it's one of the biggest mistakes fantasy managers make is holding on to like low probability running backs. Well, you'll just you wait till he gets hurt instead of someone that you could actually start in the interim. And then you get there, it's like Thanksgiving. You're like, oh wow, I've got 5 insurance backs and I'm 5-8.
Okay, a good example of that. I had Carson Steele for like 4 or 5 weeks, and I dropped him for Devon Vele of the Broncos.
That really killed your team. That Carson's been killing.
Well, because it became clear that he has no path to anything in that Chiefs offense. But for Allen, though, I don't know. Okay, well, we'll move on. But
are we worried about Brees? Like, seriously, what is the deal with Brees? It's been a very bad year. Well, last night, I was stunned when I saw I had no idea he was having a 100-yard game. He had the one big run. I felt like every time I saw him, he was taking a pitch and just getting obliterated on the edge. Are we worried at all about Brees, who in the box score is not producing at all?
Yeah, no, it's not good. And all of his peripheral stats are down from last year. He's actually he's 33rd in rush yards over expected. Like he's around like the J.K. Dobbins, like Trey Benson territory there. It's pretty bleak, and I don't know. Okay, the difference is really that he's not the scam that he was with the terrible Jets quarterbacks he had last year. And you know what? I want to say a lot of Jets folks tried to warn me about this in the summer, and I wouldn't hear it. Rodgers
we don't listen to Jets fans.
Right. Usually I don't, but I should have this time. Rodgers has no interest in checking down to running backs. He's just not going to do it. And so that makes Breece Hall mostly a game script sensitive back, and that's not what you thought you were getting with the 2nd or 3rd or 4th overall pick.
I'm not going to try to got you on this, but he's honestly still catching a pretty decent amount of passes. He has 26 catches through 6 games. That's not quite the pace from last year. The bigger issue, there's no running game volume. He hasn't had 20 carries all year. He's had above 75 yards. He's above 62 yards one time, and that was last night. And it's because of 142-yard run. And he is that kind of runner. He's the home run hitter runner. So maybe he's just been running unsustainably cold on hitting long runs. And maybe now, too, with Davante Adams, he'll have some more favorable looks, although I think he wasn't facing 8-man boxes very much. People were tweeting about this morning. And the guys just got to get more efficient. The whole offense will be more efficient with Davante Adams, though.
Yeah.
So hopefully that trickles down to Brees. But I think he's been catching enough passes. Now it is really called into question. And he wasn't catching as many as we were expecting. But I thought he was catching enough. But how are you going to catch enough passes now when there's Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, that I think that does kind of tank the idea, like the dream of like Breece Hall as a PPR scam, a guy who can, and he's good after the catch, so I don't want to just dismiss him as somebody who's just like getting empty targets. But is Adams bad for Breece Hall overall? I don't think so, but it does put a ding probably in the receiving.
Puts a ding in the receiving, but improves the overall offensive environment. Like, hopefully he's punching in more touchdowns. The dude has like barely scored this year. He has 2 touchdowns on the ground, but he's 1 through the air. So 3 touchdowns in 6 games isn't like ruinous, but not at all what you're expecting. We're still putting a bow on this real quick before we get to the Raiders side. Is there any Jet rosterable beyond Breece, Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, you claim, Braylon Allen? Any other Jet? I mean, the Conk Daddy, is he gone? Alan Lazard, is he gone?
I mean, yeah. If you're not like desperate for like a streaming option, then you can drop Conk Father. Tyler Conklin is who we're talking about, folks. And Alan Lazard, I guess, is probably not a thing anymore. But also, just I think cool it a little bit on Lazard, because if Adams actually is dinged up, which who knows if he is. He, by the way, he was like in New York last night.
I know.
For this.
Give me a break.
But if Adams is going to miss this week, then I think Lazard is still playable.
mean, the faking injury thing, it might rub some people the wrong way. It actually is like the chivalrous way to approach this.
It is.
You don't just hold out, you fake an injury. You at least like let it, like you don't totally embarrass the Raiders. Like everyone knows you're faking, but it's at least like, I'm hurt, man. That's fine. The other Raiders can go on with the trade. Yeah. How many times do the Raiders have to leak? It's a real injury. That's always a really good sign about the injury when it's being leaked that it's a real injury.
It's a good franchise overall.
Speaking of real injuries, we'll get to Russell Wilson in a minute. Fallout for the Raiders, Brock Bowers, PPR machine go burr.
Yeah.
Jacoby Myers battling an ankle injury. What is the fallout for the Raiders? I mean, I guess the fallout, we've already seen it. We've seen it in action for 3 weeks already. But what is the fallout for the Raiders?
Yeah. So just real quick here, Brock Bowers targeted on 34% of his pass routes over the past 2 games. That's crazy high for anybody, especially a tight end. That's led to 23 targets over those 2 games at a nice, tidy, scammy 6.5 average depth of target. We love that, actually. So like Vegas has 13th highest pass rate over expected. They're dropping back on 66% of their plays because A, they can't run it, and B, they're always trailing. They're always in trailing script. Jacoby Myers, when he comes back from this injury, I think he'll be very interesting, actually, from a PPR perspective. From week 3 to 5, 9 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets for Myers. That's all with Adams out. He's playing 40% from the slot, and Aiden O'Connell, his air yards per attempt, Pat, sits at a very low 4.8. We're getting checkdowns. This is a terrible team, terrible offense, but I do think that a concentrated a target share between Bowers and Myers could make each of them interesting. And Bowers beyond interesting. Bowers clearly has a runway to runaway tight end 1.
What about the disastrous donut? I mean, I don't know how disastrous. I don't know how many people are really playing him. But Trey Tucker had a big fat 0 in week 6. I mean, anything with Trey? Are we keeping Trey rostered in 12-team leagues?
No, I don't think so. I know. I actually was bullish on him. You can check my DFS lineups from last week if you like to, if you like some proof. Didn't make a lot of money. The bank examiner enjoyed that day.
I couldn't help but notice they had torn down some of the drywall in your office.
Yeah, they did. And there's actually a second Spirit Halloween.
Say the spirit is expanding. I didn't want to bring this up in the air, but I know your family's been going through a tough time.
I mean, side by side Spirit Halloweens. Are you kidding me? It seems excessive.
They're like Starbucks. They're on every block.
But yeah, Trey Tucker is not a thing.
Trey Tucker, not a thing. Also not a thing is our next topic. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back after this. This Sunday night, it's a showdown of 2 teams vying for position in a crowded group of AFC contenders. Catch Aaron Rodgers and the new-look New York Jets as they take on TJ Watt and the new-look Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. We thought we were going to get to the Steelers right now, but we have to get to to the Bills, the team the Jets faced on Monday Night Football. They've made a trade. We've got other stuff with the Bills, too, to get to. By the way, so the Jets and Bills, they spend 60 minutes watching their kickers just miss one kick after another after the game. Like, we got to get a receiver, man. We either got to score touchdowns or we got to get close enough that these idiots aren't just missing a field goal every 5 minutes.
Yep.
We got to get a receiver. The Bills did have to get a receiver. They just had to get a receiver. It was not tenable. Khalil Shakir was, people were predicting in the year he might be like the best receiver, like the most all-around featured Bills receiver. And he was. And that was a very bad thing. He's not good enough for that role. Totally miscast in that role. Curtis Samuel looks washed. Keon Coleman does not look ready. Mac Hollins and MVS are Chris Hogan cardio all-stars. No. Something had to give. Amari Cooper, we haven't had time to prep a lot of it. I know people, this may shock, but we do prep for the podcast. You might not have all your fanciest stats. But Amari Cooper to the Bills, a guy who had faded from wide receiver 2 relevance with Deshaun Watson just like quitting on everything.
Yeah.
Rockets back into the top 24, I'm assuming. What do you think happens with Amari Cooper on the Bills?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at I'm looking at some fancy stats at the moment. And here's what you have. You have a wide receiver room that where nobody's taking charge. Khalil Shakir, 14% target share. Keon Coleman, 13%. Mac Hollins, 12%. Curtis Samuel, 11%. So, nobody wants this is basically what's happening. MVS, by the way, 150 air yards on the year, 26 actual yards. Just a horrifying group of receivers. MVS and Mac Hollins, wouldn't even be on most rosters. I don't think. I think, yeah, Cooper comes in and probably dominates. I will say that by every metric, the Bills seem like they want to be very run heavy, although they will lean into a pass funnel when necessary. We've seen that a couple times this year. Yeah. So if you held on to Cooper, you are rewarded, I think, here. And Cooper has proven himself to be a pretty good target earner in every stop all along his actually journeyman career path, obviously, at this point. So yeah, I think he's wide receiver 2-ish now.
I mean, there's a chance that Amari is kind of just on like the career downslope, like kind of like he's always been a little bit better than Brandon Cooks, but maybe in his Brandon Cooks phase, what is he? He's on the wrong side of 30 now. Deshaun Watson can be blamed for most things, but he can't be blamed for everything. But it just feels like this is going to be great because his floor has still been 4 catches for 40 yards this year, Denny. And I mean, they need someone so bad. Like you get advantageous looks when defenses are scared to death of Josh Allen. Am I coping? I feel like he's got to be back in the 24.
Well, I think that there is some indication that Cooper is not, like the borderline elite sort of talent that he was 3 or 4 years ago. In ESPN's Open Score, which just kind of measures the separation that a pass catcher gets, Cooper is 78th out of 92 qualifying pass catchers. Really far down there. His yards per route run is off the charts bad. That's mostly due to Watson, though.
Yeah, how do you even get open when the play breaks down immediately because the defense doesn't respect the quarterback?
Yeah,
I can't block. I don't know how much I buy in.
I don't know how to answer. I every time I post about open scores, like, well, how do they know? I don't know, man. I'm not the algorithm. But it doesn't really matter, I don't think, because Cooper is clearly better than all these other guys. The Bills would do well to just throw it to him and Dalton Kincaid, honestly, and just ignore everybody else.
Is Kincaid even good?
He's not really, but I think he's better than what they have otherwise. There will be games that are frustrating. There will be games where we're going to get on this show. We're going to say, Cooper, it was good, 34% target share, which means 6 targets. I think that will happen down the line.
Well, the Bills' approach wasn't working. I don't think they can go. They had this delusion that they could be like super mega run heavy, which you're going to talk about because they were on Monday night and have been the past 2 weeks. You're not going to win playing that way with Josh Allen. You can't win super mega run heavy when you have one of the ultimate playmaking passers and where he's the most talented runner. It seems like a dumb approach to me. I feel like we're going to get more passing, but what are we seeing with this really heavy Bills run heavy approach? Ray Davis doing a fraud alert for James Cook. I hate to say, but like Ray Davis doing what they have wanted James Cook to do, and James Cook has never done. He doesn't really get the opportunity. They almost never give him 20 carries. The Bills team has been obsessively searching for a power back for like 4 or 5 years. And what if they found him, Denny? What if they found him?
I mean, I've been wondering why, they haven't had Ray Davis play much at all. I mean, in week 6, Ray Davis had 22 of the team's 31 running back rushing attempts, 60% overall of the team rushing attempts. Of course, Josh Allen had 9, and that factors into anyone who plays, running back for the Bills. Ray Davis had 14 routes on the day to only 8 routes for Ty Johnson. So yeah, I think that he could sneak into relevance somewhat, but I also think that the team really likes James Cook and probably will stick with him when he's fully healthy. When that is, I don't know.
I'm worried that the Bills they want to be a committee team so ridiculously bad. We saw they were totally dead ending on the committee last year. Like the Latavius Murray role outstayed its welcome by about 2 months. And if Ray Davis is actually ready for the Latavius Murray role, I mean, I don't know. I think it could be. I think last night was not a good outcome for James Cook. Not to go full doomer, but this is a team that has wanted to do this for years and years and years and years. And they stuck with Zach Moss way too long. They stuck with Latavius Murray way too long, and they're like, "Oh, we got something in this Davis."
I don't know, man. I'm a little skeptical of Ray Davis becoming a major problem for Cooks because James Cook has been really good this year, like by every measure.
He's been good on 13 touches. He's been fine.
I think the box score will reveal something. There's no way to know right now, but
I think he reached 20 carries one time. They don't ever want this guy going over 15. Like, ever. Here's carries total: 19, 11, 11, 9, 20. He did get 20 finally in week 5. But
I mean, yeah, it sounds like an arbitrary cutoff.
He got typecast. They think he cannot carry the mail.
But you also throw in how many receptions does he have if you have his box score up right there?
It's actually horribly bleak. You wouldn't even believe the number if I told you. 11.
11. Okay.
Yeah. It's over.
Yeah, I mean, that has something to do with the offense itself. So the Bills' expected dropback rate this year is 60%. Their actual dropback rate is 55%. And when you have a 55% drop back rate, you have a quarterback who's running 6, 7, 8, 10 times a game sometimes. That destroys pass volume. And that's why I would say that Amari Cooper, even if he commands a good share of the targets, is still not going to be peppered as we would see from like a Kirk Cousins offense or a Matthew Stafford offense. You just have to keep that in mind as far as the environment goes.
He might be, to be honest, like, total apples to oranges, but I mean, they did that with Steph Diggs for 3 or 4 years. They had one guy that they force-fed the ball to. Amari Cooper is 30. Steph Diggs was like 26 or 27 when they did, and they got tired of that approach, by their own words. Like, they got sick of that approach. But Amari's not the type of player that you're really going to succeed doing that with. But could Amari Cooper get the pass rate up from 55 to the actually expected 60?
That's something I often kind of, to my detriment, ignore the fact that, like, when a team makes a move, I did that in 2020 where the Bills got Stefon Diggs and I wrote him off. I said, well, what do you want anything to do with Stefon Diggs in this run heavy offense? And then they went ultra giga skibbity toilet run pass heavy. I don't know. Do the Zoomers like me now? I don't know.
That was very sus, Denny.
I'm going to crash out. Have you heard this one?
No, that's actually a good one.
The kids are saying I'm going to crash out.
That's the first good Zoomer slang I've heard, actually. Crash out. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's actually a Bowie reference, I think.
The skibbity one is we can't retire this one.
It's the worst thing I've ever heard.
It's the genuine worst thing I've ever heard, and it's made its way even to Missouri, and my 8-year-old
it made the trek to the Midwest.
It has. It crossed the Mississippi River into the St. Louis suburbs, and we are down horrific.
What were we talking about?
I don't know.
Amari Cooper.
Yeah, Amari Cooper.
Oh, okay. So yes. Oh, yes. I do know what we were talking about. Yes, maybe this portends a significant shift in the way the Bills operate their offense, and if so, then Amari will cook.
I don't think it'd be significant. I do think it could get them to their actual expected pass rate. The approach was dumb. It wasn't working. Like, this whole thing, the Bills' offense has been incoherent.
You know what happened? The worst thing that ever happened to the Bills, besides all the Super Bowl losses, was the game last year, near the end of last year, where they were like 30% below their expected dropback rate against the Cowboys, and they ran for like 250 yards and 4 touchdowns, right? And there was an ESPN article that said after that game, they decided we don't need Stefon Diggs. We don't need anyone to catch passes because we can simply just do this every week. So that
it turned out it was just Tom Landry's ghost haunting the Cowboys.
And so in that way, I think it kind of ruined this Bills offense in making them believe that, let's just run the ball 45 times a game and win. It's that easy.
Doesn't work. I was saying kind of some incoherent things in the Bills there too, just because I do think they're going to pass a little more now. I do think Ray Davis is a bit of a problem. It's weird because I'm saying they're going to pass more than they got Amari Cooper. But I think there was another kind of a bad data point. They're like, oh, yeah, the power back did actually gain yards against a tough defense, too. One that's easier to run against than pass against. But maybe the identity crisis is going to continue a little longer for the Bills. I don't know. We'll find out in week 7 when they play a team. Denny, I'm hoping another trade was going to happen while we were talking, so we didn't have to actually talk about Russ and the Steelers. But, the Chiefs got Darius Slayton. Let's just hope that happens to start talking about the Chiefs acquiring.
I thought it did. I was like, wait, what?
No. That's not a real trade. Do not look that up. That has not happened and will not happen. Okay. We're out of trades to talk about those. So we're now talking about the Steelers ordering. There's code reds, and then they're switching to Russell Wilson mid-season. I don't think it was that bad of a mood, to be honest. I'm watching Justin Fields. Like, this isn't winning football. And Russ has not been playing winning football for several years now. But first, what are your thoughts on the move?
So Mike Tomlin, the headlines were that Tom Pelissero said that Russell Wilson is, quote, in line to start week 7. This basically comes out of nowhere, okay? Tomlin said that, I can't remember his exact words, but he basically kind of downplayed that a little bit, and he said that it's in consideration. Thank you, producer Adam.
This happens all the time. The Steelers, their stuff always gets leaked,
and so Tomlin said that he hasn't thought about the minutia of who will start at quarterback in week 7.
It's Russ, because here's the deal: if it was Fields, he would have just said it was Fields.
And it's upset. I'm trying to separate my analyst brain from my fantasy playing brain.
Fields has been terrible, man. Fields has been terrible.
What do you mean? He's like QB5 on the year.
Fantasy. He's totally good in fantasy.
That's what I'm saying. It's painful. It's painful from a fantasy standpoint that they're going to. And also, let's just be real here. This is going to last 2 games, 3 at the most. Okay. Russell Wilson is old, weak-armed, immobile. He hurt his calf the second he stepped onto a practice field in 2024. Okay, so it's going to come back to Fields eventually. They're 4-2. They're 1 goal line stand away from being 5-1. Okay, and like being like on a clear path to the postseason. And they're going to bench Justin Fields for a guy who hasn't been good in literally 5 years.
Well, it's because, listen, I hate to be a hater. They played the Falcons. They played the Broncos. They played the Chargers without Justin Herbert, I believe. Maybe no, I can't remember. There was something going on in that game. The Colts, the Cowboys, who are terrible, and they lost the Cowboys. And then the Raiders. And we've watched these games. Justin Fields is not moving this offense, man. Like it's been like a teeth-pulling offense. Part of that is the lack of weapons, of course. But I could see how they're watching these games and thinking, at worst, Russ isn't a big downgrade, and that there's a chance he's an upgrade. I actually do. I hate to admit, I understand the logic behind the move because he has not been unassailable by any stretch.
It's a bad offense. It's a bad offensive coordinator, bad players, all the way around.
Bad mindset.
Yeah, Najee Harris, bad. George Pickens, wide receiver 2 at best. Pat Freiermuth is a nice meme. But beyond that, what do you have? You Calvin Austin, like Justin Fields. I think has played all right if you consider his rushing and what that brings to the team. That's something Russell Wilson doesn't have. This is a bad move. Obviously, Mike Tomlin never wanted to start Justin Fields. He never wanted to give him a chance. And now that Russell Wilson can walk, he's going to start.
This Fields. When I watch these games, I'm like, listen, we say this about every Arthur Smith offense. It's probably on him as many ways. Like, this is not a fun offense to watch.
Oh, it's miserable. It's totally.
And Fields was the one part that could have risen above that, and he just wasn't, in my opinion. I did not think he was playing well.
I mean, look, you said, they lost to the Cowboys. If they wanted to win, they should have simply stopped them at the goal line. And then you win. So what happened there? So Justin Fields should have been playing cornerback on Jalen Tolbert?
By the way, everyone's talking about the Ravens revival. My take is a huge red flag that they beat the Cowboys by only 3. Huge red flag, even though they were up really big at halftime.
Did they only beat them by 3?
28-25. I think they were up 28.
Oh, yeah, that was the garbage time fest. God, that's the only way we can rely on the Cowboys right now.
They're not awful. I don't know. Russ, he's not making them better. I'll say that. Definitely not in fantasy. For fantasy,
I'm so upset.
It's the worst thing that's ever happened for fantasy. The worst thing that's ever happened for our producer, Adam, is me taking a break off schedule. But we will be right back after this. We're counting down to the tip-off of the NBA season. And for those of you drafting your fantasy team, get a jump on your competition with the free Rotoworld basketball draft kit. Get all the rankings, stats, and player profiles you need to dominate your league all season long. Go to NBCSports.com/hoopskit to download today. Really amazing stuff from Raphael and the team. They work really hard. They're grinding. The NBA, the season, I'm assuming, starts. And the NBA and NHL, they got to get better about marketing when their seasons begin.
I didn't even know NHL had started.
The NHL, no one knew it started. The NHL started in Prague. They started in Prague.
You serious?
Like 5 days before the season started. And then the NHL had a tweet like the day before the actual season starting, and like the season's starting tomorrow, and everyone's like, "You already played 2 games in Prague. Like the season started."
That's what MLB did when they had games in Japan or whatever.
First off, MLB does that every year. Second off, they actually market it, Denny. Get your facts straight.
I've never even heard of this game. The only way I know about it is you.
Hey, there's lots of me's out there. Baseball's still really popular. We swear to God, it's still really popular.
Yeah, man. Hey, they have West Coast games on in the morning on the East Coast now. The Dodgers are playing at 6 a.m. Eastern.
Stop it. The Metropolitans tied the Dodgers in the NLCS last night. October 22nd, a week from today, is NBA opening night. I have a draft on October 21st, so good to know. We're drafting before the season starts. Denny, good to know. Ahead of our Week 7 plans that every Saint is hurt. Chris Olave, unfortunately, back in the concussion protocol. Rashid Shaheed looking extremely questionable, maybe doubtful. What's the deal with Rashid Shaheed? What's even hurt on him?
It's a leg situation.
His knee. His knee is hurt. Spencer Rattler is starting. It's a winnable game against the Broncos. They might actually try to rush Shaheed back. But this is my long way of saying, is it Bub Means season for the Saints on Thursday?
Man, what do the kids say? Life comes at you fast. Well,
it does.
It's now Bub.
Remember when the Saints were the most unstoppable offense we have ever seen after 2 games?
I believe your co-host said that it was over after week 3. So I hope
you pulled the plug very early. Denny took the Saints up. Like the rest of the family's like, I don't know, grandma might live. And Denny's like, nope.
I said, pull the damn plug. It's over. Yeah, so it's totally over for this whole team. I don't know. I guess Bub Means, like if Taysom Hill, you're going to hate this. Woo, you're going to hate this. If Taysom Hill comes back from his 4th injury of the 2024 season.
Immediately. It doesn't matter.
I could actually see, honestly, him getting 10 touches in this game. Because what else are they going to do?
I don't know, nothing. Yeah, I mean, this game is as bleak as human. Like Bezos' vision has never been down worse.
This is an Ian Book COVID situation, right? Remember, Ian Book ended the COVID pandemic by starting on a Monday night, and the NFL had to say, okay, COVID doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, they stopped testing the second Ian Book took 1 snap.
Right. So we thank Ian Book for ending the pandemic, but we also do not look forward to this Thursday night, this is going to be a horror show. I mean,
this
really,
total's 37.5, which feels like 5 points too high to me.
Like the Broncos, who, as you said online the other day, the Broncos who don't even try to score until they get down by 21 points against the Saints, who can't score with Spencer Rattler and Bub Means and Taysom Hill. Oh my God, it's terrible.
Producer Adam points out they've signed Dante Pettis, which isn't a great sign, but that might have just as much to do with Chris Olave being hurt as Shaheed. Shaheed, I would consider well on the wrong side of questionable. Shaheed also a guy though who like runs in a straight line a lot. So maybe like, as long as we don't ask him to cut, maybe he'll catch a 50-yard touchdown. So.
I mean, yeah, from a fantasy standpoint, you're starting Kamara, you're starting Shaheed if he plays. You really have to consider Taysom, I think, if he plays. And maybe Juwan Johnson.
I don't even know if I would play Taysom because like he ruptured his spleen. Like,
yes, that's great. That's great process. You tell the listeners you don't play a guy because he might get hurt.
Taysom leaves. He's got like a cut on his arm, man. It was a really deep cut though.
He's 44 years old. What do you want?
It's true. It's bad. Let me getting binoculars to look at our show sheet here. Bo Nix percolating at all?
Yeah. Yes.
Really?
Oh, there's so much percolation.
Wow.
I wrote about it in the regression files if folks want to check that out on rotoworld.com. Yeah. So Nix is, let's see, I'm looking closely. Fantasy's 6th highest scoring quarterback over the past 2 weeks.
Give me a break. God, the scoring is broken, man. Good God. Your guy rushes 6 times for 61 yards. All of a sudden, he's a good fantasy quarterback. We got to stop this.
So my next sentence in the regression files, is, are you triggered?
and I took the bait. And
you are so
immediately triggered. Yep.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so he has 180 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground this year. It's this weird thing where he's not like a typical Konami code, like cheat code guy, because he's not providing anything through the air.
He's a mono threat. He's not a dual
crazy.
threat.
So he's like the running back, I think, in the Broncos offense. Let me just emphasize that with some numbers real quick. So Javonte Williams, who fumbled again, Jover for him last week, 6 carries against the Chargers. So well, that means Jaleel McLaughlin was the workhorse. No, 3 carries for McLaughlin. Well, okay, then they shifted to Estime. That Audric Estime was the guy who saw 15. No, 2 carries for him. So we're having Bo Nix as the leading ball carrier now in the Broncos offense. It's horrible for real football. It is interesting for fantasy.
I trying to strip aside all bit and artifice. I don't know how interesting it can really be when he is seriously not passing. Like, he is not passing. Like, he's just straight up not. Like, every game he has like 20 yards at halftime, and he gets like 150 scoreless yards in the second half to make it look vaguely respectable. Like, their skill core makes the Steelers look like the 90s Cowboys. Like, I've never seen a worse skill core, ever. Like, totally absurd.
It's true. I mean, I'm looking at, like, against the Chargers, you had you had Knicks drop back on 70% of the plays. Okay, so it's not like they were run heavy, right? 70% drop back rate. Cortland Sutton leads the team with 6 targets. Devon Vile was second with 5 targets, and Vile is kind of fun from a PPR scam perspective. So I don't think that you can play either of the Denver running backs right now.
You can't. I think the Estime stuff is just beginning. I think we're going to see a much bigger Audric Estime role this week, because why would you not?
Yeah, they're going to give up on Javonte. I think that's pretty.
They've been wanting to give up on Javonte forever. Then he got the random revival after the really unfortunate Bidet back injury, but he's immediately turned back into a pumpkin.
I forgot about that. So, yeah, they tried to replace him with Bidet. Bidet immediately goes down. So, Estime is next up, yeah.
Denny, people are wondering if it's Kamani Vidal season, but you were noticing the Chargers were weirdly pass-heavy coming out of the bye. This was something I had been thinking about for a while, that I actually thought that the Chargers' early super, super run-heavy ways, as much as it seemed like what we expected from Harbaugh and Greg Roman, I was wondering if it had a little more to do with the ankle injury for Justin Herbert, and maybe he's getting healthier. This might be an outcome we actually saw. What did we see with the Chargers and their approach in Week 6?
Yeah, just real quick, Kamani Vidal, obviously every best ball bro's favorite running back in the summer. He caught a 39-yard touchdown, which was cool, but he only had 4 rushing attempts for 11 yards. J.K. Dobbins had 25 for 96 yards. So it's not a shared backfield by any means. Gus Edwards is going to miss at least the next 3 games just to lay out that backfield situation. But yeah, so we had 38 dropbacks for Justin Herbert against the Broncos, which is a season high by a long shot. The Chargers, listen, I double and triple check this because I actually didn't believe my own eyes when I saw it. The Chargers in Week 6 led the NFL in early down neutral pass rate. Okay, they passed on 70% of those situations.
Wow,
that's the sort of thing that may suggest a shift that I know you've talked about recently, where maybe they're willing to lean in a little bit into, like, not a pass heavy offense, but at least a balanced offense. And so that makes a guy like Ladd McConkey interesting. And honestly, it's good for J.K. Dobbins. He's out running routes. He's going to be the main pass catcher out of that backfield.
And they understand that J.K. Dobbins probably can't be taking 25 carries a game. And just when you have Justin Herbert, they have a set style of play, Harbaugh and Roman. Maybe even they're realizing, like, yeah, we've got this Corvette. Like, we can't just only be driving 55. Like, we have to occasionally, like, I'm going to speed limit 70. I'm only going to pass still if they're going under 70. But say if someone's in the right lane and they're going 58, I might go 62 in the fast lane and briefly pass them.
I really messed up that stat, and the stat was right. They were first in neutral pass rate, but they going into that week they were 31st in neutral pass rate on first down. So that's the sort of thing where, are they going to finish first every week? Of course not. Okay, this is Greg Roman, this is Jim Harbaugh. We know what the deal is. If they're top 10, if they're top 12, it does change the landscape of this offense. and should produce enough looks for these pass catchers to be passable, I guess, in fantasy.
Even top 20 would be like a really big deal.
It would.
Be honest. It would.
They
would make Ladd McConkey a safe wide receiver 3, probably.
They almost got to 0% pass rate over expected. That's insane. That's like the equivalent of a team never running the ball once. You know, another team, a non-Greg Roman team.
Speaking of running the ball, the Falcons, they won a game once, and then they decided they're like a juggernaut, and we're just going to run the ball. We're playing a bad Panthers team, and we're going to put them away. And they did. The game was fairly competitive. It was still one score in the fourth quarter. They never really truly buried the Panthers, but they went super run heavy. We got 100 yards from scrimmage for both Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. Bijan needed a catch to put him over 100. Tyler Algier did not. What did you see from the Falcons and their offensive approach in Week 6?
Yeah, we obviously guarded against this outcome. We told people in both shows last week, and I mentioned on my Friday start sit show that the Falcons, have been crazy pass heavy, 12% over the expected pass rate in Week 4, 13% over in Week 5. That led to the 500+ yard game, whatever, the rest. Last week against the Panthers, 4% under their expected pass rate. That's more in line with what we saw early in the season with -5%, -7%. I think that's how they generally want to play it. Whether we like it or not, we just have to kind of roll with it. And I think in the right game script, it makes Tyler Algier somewhat interesting. Now, predicting that is going to be a little tough. Like, you're really going to have to rely on things unfolding as they probably, quote, should unfold, like against the Panthers, say. This week, they get the Seahawks, who are a pretty bad run defense.
And the Falcons are home favorites for this.
It could happen again, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think, it's more a sign of anything that they're just going to be adaptable, and that when they don't have to put everything on Kirk Cousins' plate, they won't do that. They know that they can when they need to. Like, as early as Week 8, they're going on the road to Tampa. That looks like a shootout. Week 9, they have the Cowboys at home. That could be like they're running 60 times. That is, the Cowboys just straight up cannot stop the run.
No.
Week 10, they're in New Orleans. That'll depend on if Derek Carr's back. But it looks like that when they can, they're going to take a load off Kirk Cousins, basically. And you don't have to do everything today. Man, it's probably smart football. It's real bad, though.
It's not necessarily bad for Drake London. It is bad for Kyle Pitts. I mean, Kyle Pitts literally needs them to drop back 60 times in order to be fantasy relevant.
Yeah, he got 70 yards last week, even in this run-heavy game. I mean,
did he?
Yeah, it was on like 4 targets. But
hey, that's better than normal.
Denny, have the Jaguars broken beyond repair?
I mean, I'm afraid to say yes, because all I see again for the third straight year are highlights of would-be Trevor Lawrence touchdowns, which honestly, come on. I mean,
they were down like 3 touchdowns when all these drops were happening too. Like, give me a break.
Some of these videos, though, are a little disingenuous. Like, oh, wow, that would have been like one of the best catches ever. And so is it a drop? I don't know. I mean, Brian Thomas, definitely a drop. Okay,
Gabe Davis drops against the Bears. They were already losing like 28-10. I mean, I don't know.
So, and I guess really the argument is that Trevor Lawrence is just snake bit. Like I don't.
There is an element of that, because this is not a good offensive approach. And 2, it was so predictable. We were talking about the second Evan Engram comes back, we'll just revolve the offense around these easy completions to Evan Engram. Like, we're moving the chains. Then you move the chains like the 50-yard line, and then you're out of ideas. And like, instead of taking shots down the field, it's all about these easy conversions. So Evan Engram had a great box score, but it made the offense worse. He's a really, really good Bears defense, but it's just a horrible offensive design. Doug Peterson is not a good offensive coordinator and play designer. Like, he had some innovations, I guess, with the Eagles, but then everyone immediately copied them and moved on, and he never moved on. Total identity crisis in the backfield. Like, Doug Peterson is the ultimate. Like, the committee can never be big enough, basically. Like, there's no backfield committee that's big enough for Doug Peterson. Can never get an identity, figure out what he actually wants to do on offense. The defense is saying they're quitting on the team. Like, Andre Sisco's like, we quit. And like, it's a horribly toxic situation. They're stuck in Europe. Trevor Lawrence makes so many non-competitive throws, though. That really is the biggest problem. The guy turf missiles passes, the air mails passes. People make mistakes. It's a bad offensive design. He makes so many non-competitive throws. It's like just totally ridiculous. Like for a guy who's supposedly good, I've never seen this many non-competitive throws.
Yeah, I mean, and the numbers bear that out. Like he's regularly among the league leaders in uncatchable passes, and that not just this year, but the year before, last year and the year before. I do think Evan Engram is bad for Trevor Lawrence. 10 catches on 10 targets on 32 routes, okay, against the Bears. So basically he had a safety blanket back and he could just check it down and say, I'm done. It's the same thing with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has no interest in actually trying to be aggressive, go downfield, try to score points. It's just like, hey, what can I do? I'm just dropping back and I'm just checking it down. And hey, you got to do the rest, buddy. So Chris, the cool Christian Kirk downfield stuff vanished last week. All right. Brian Thomas vanished last week. It's really unfortunate, but I think you're onto something. The other side of the coin is that Evan Engram is a nice scam, I will say.
It's kind of like the Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen thing where the Chargers were basically like, this is not good for you. Like you've got to do something else. And he like this thing never would. And that's not so it's very good when you have a tight end that's super good at getting open over the middle of the field. But it has to be like a situational thing. It cannot be like the bedrock of the passing attack. It has to be like when in need on third down. Like then you do it.
Yeah.
3rd and 3 from your 42. Yeah. Target Evan Engram.
Well,
it can't be the first option. It's just like you're never going to score enough points. So that's the first.
That's what the opposing defense wants, right?
Yes.
I mean, they desperately want you to run it at 4 yards a clip and to check down to your tight end at 6 yards a clip, right? That's what they want. That's the point of the too high safety thing, is to be like, you're not getting anything that will actually make a difference. You can check down to Evan Engram all day long. That's fine. But we're not doing this. We're not letting Brian Thomas get loose, you know?
Unless you had some really good stuff, should we just save Drake May and Calvin Ridley until Thursday, Denny?
I think so. I wrote a lot about Drake May and the Patriots offense and the regression files if folks want to check that out.
We'll get to that too on Thursday with Mr. Kyle Dvorak when he joins us to preview Week 7. So yeah, check out Denny's regression files. Check out Rivers McCown on the fallout from the Davante Adams trade. Check out Kyle Dvorak's waivers. Yeah, check out our preview show on Thursday. We have a lot of stuff on the site. Maybe some more trades this week. We got everything broken down in our blurbs. So for Denny Carter, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in 48 hours.